Only if you are an observant person, kuna some of the things that unaweza kuwa conscious about them na unazi observe. Although we living in a free world where everybody is entitled to some things like freedom to choose, freedom to think, freedom for life, as in we are free humans. Although tunakuanga tumejirestricts kwa cocoons fulani, kwa kujiseparate bila kujua, consciously ama unconsciously tunakuanga tumejiweka kwa cocoons fulani na kujitofautisha kama group fulani ama group fulani. At the modern African man, we are not that way. We are free. We talk with everybody. We share with everyone. We don't know everything and we want to know. Like, it's really so unfortunate that there's some things that are just universal and are widely accepted by everyone. Like, for example, people always choosing negative over positive. People choosing bad over good. People have been programmed in such a way where if you give one good and bad, people will always go for bad first, then later think about good when they have faced the consequences. I don't know if that's the way life was supposed to be, but it also teaches us a lot. Experience is the best teacher. There are some things that are unacceptable na hata kuzipatia jina ni ngumu. They don't have title because they are unacceptable in a civilized human society. Although we are supposed to be free and don't care, like water flowing in a river. You know, when water is flowing in a river, it goes through valleys, it goes through rocks, makona, finding its way. If it finds its way through, it will pass freely without caring. We as human beings also are not supposed to care. But unfortunately, we are living in a world where evil rules over holiness, bad rules over good. So it's also good to be conscious in every choice we make. We are holy and we are spiritual beings. Positivity is supposed to be our way of life because our life is supposed to be progressing. But it's so unfortunate we are not conscious, and that's the reason to why we are the modern African man. Our dream is to see people awakened, people being conscious and knowing who they are, the knowledge of self-knowledge and the relationship between you and the greatest high power. You know, the first step of elevation, ama spiritual elevation, ama awakening, is the knowledge of self, knowing who you are, knowing the power that you have, and how powerful you can change things around you. I wish I can continue with this topic, but today was not the day for that. Today we are supposed to continue with our reading. But before we get down to our reading, I would also like to thank you guys for your support. Thank you guys because we are growing. We are moving from one place to another. Yani growth is just following us each and every day. We are also winning. Continue with the support. Continue following. Continue liking. Continue subscribing. And continue sharing these videos, manze. Let's awaken each other. Let's share whatever we want to the world. You know, our purpose is to live life, share love, and awaken. So let's do this together, man. Continue the support, and I greatly thank you together with my team. I'm doing that on behalf of my team. So today we are going to read about another individual who changed the world from a book of people who changed the world. And this Jamaa is called Agamemnon. Agamemnon was a very great warrior and king in the Greek kingdom, the Greek kingdom in the ancient times. Without wasting more time, I will go down and start reading about Agamemnon so that you can also get to know who he was and why his life was written by different poets and great writers in ancient time. So let's get down to Agamemnon's story. Agamemnon lived in the 13th century BC, king of Messenia from 1250 to 1220 BC, king of Achaea, victor of the Trojan War. Agamemnon being one of the people who changed the world with his life, he impacted our lives in one way or the other. alikuwa na achievement, and these achievements are the ones that made him be one of those people who changed the world with his life. So some of his achievements are: made Messenia into one of the leading cities in Greece, united Bronze Age southern and central Greece into confederation, piloted Greek nationhood, became High King of the Messenian Greeks, led the Greeks against Troy and won the Trojan War, became an icon military glory. Agamemnon features as one of the leading figures in Homer's epic poem The Iliad. Some scholars still believe the Iliad was a work of fiction written in the 8th century, but most now think that at least some of the story is true. It seems likely from the archaeological evidence that there really were Bronze Age kings ruling from urban centers like Pylos, Therapene, and Messenia, and there is no reason why they may not have been called Nestor, Menelaus, and Agamemnon. Tunaambiwa Agamemnon aliimpact life ya wasee sana mpaka story yake ikaandikwa in poems, and one of the writers who wrote a poem by the name Iliad about Agamemnon's life now the Trojan War was Homer. Homer was a very great writer and a poet in the ancient period. He was very much respected and honored, and he wrote about Iliad, which some people walikuwa naona haikuwa ya ukweli, it was a fiction, but in the coming years walikam kuagree after kuread na understand the story that that story was real, and what the Iliad was entailing was also real. Let's continue reading about Agamemnon, and we'll get to know how he changed our lives. On the whole, it is more likely that Agamemnon was an historical figure than not. We know from contemporary documents that the Hittite Greek kings knew and respected the Greek commander-in-chief. Letters survive that address the king of Ayawa, Achaia, and refer to him as the great king, in other words, of equal stature to the Hittite Greek great king who ruled most of Anatolia. There are also references in the Hittite archives to another king of Ayawa who raided the Anatolian coast further south. He was called Atarias, which may be the Hittite version of Atarius, the name of Agamemnon's father. Tunaambiwa Agamemnon alikuwa respected mpaka na Hittite kings, na unafaa ukumbuke kings wa Haiti, most of them walikuwa na origin from Greek, so walikuwa najua about Agamemnon and they really respected him so much, na alikuwa ina stature, ina high stature like some of their kings, wenye one of them mwenye alirida Anatolia na akakonka Anatolia alikuwa great kama Agamemnon. Agamemnon alikuwa referred kama Achaia hiyo time. I don't know ilikuwa inamaanisha nini, but hivyo ndio walikuwa wanamuita. Tunaambiwa pia kuna king mwingine mwenye alikuwa anaitwa Atreus. Version ya Hittite wanasema alikuwa anaitwa Atreus. Na huyo Atreus alikuwa buda ya Agamemnon, na tunaambiwa yeye pia alikonka Anatolia, yenye ni kumaanisha aligrab Anatolia kutoka from the Hittites. Na maybe Hittites hawakuwa wanaweza kufight back sababu pia hao walikuwa Wagiriki, they were from Greeks, so the father of Agamemnon alikonka Anatolia na came one of his territories. Let's continue reading and know more about Agamemnon. After the murder of Atreus, Baba Agamemnon, Agamemnon and his brother Menelaus took refuge with Tiberius, the king of Sparta, and they married his troublesome daughters, Slymetra and Helen. Agamemnon had three daughters, Iphigenia, Electra, and Chrysosthemis, and son called Orestes. Tunaambiwa buda ya kina Agamemnon, King Anatarius, alikuwa murdered. Na after kuwa murdered, Agamemnon na brother yake Menelaus waliepa wakaenda kutafuta refuge kwa king mmoja wa Sparta alikuwa anaitwa Tiberius. But tunaambiwa huko kwa Sparta Agamemnon walimari madoto wa Tiberius, na Agamemnon aka 3 daughters na 1 son mwenye alikuwa anaitwa Orestes. When Tiberius died, Menelaus succeeded to the throne of Lacedaemon, Sparta. Agamemnon enlisted his brother's help in ousting his uncle Thyestes from Messenia so that he could claim the throne of Messenia for himself. Tunaambiwa after King Tiberius kudai, brother ya Agamemnon, Menelaus, ndiye alitake over as king huko hivyo place ilikuwa inaitwa Lacedaemon. Na sababu sasa alikuwa na power, Agamemnon alimreach out na akamwambia amsaidie pia yeye ku overthrow uncle yake Messenia, ndio pia achukue Messenia, na which alisucceed, na Agamemnon akakuja akakuwa king wa Messenia. Let's continue reading. Agamemnon was an aggressive warrior and soon established himself as the most powerful warlord in Greece. He naturally emerged as commander-in-chief of the combined Greek forces that sailed against Troy to avenge the abduction of the wife of Menelaus, Helen. According to Homer, the punitive expedition was organized solely to avenge the abduction of Helen. Helen was taken by Paris, a Trojan prince and the son of King Priam of Troy, while Paris was staying as a guest at the palace of Menelaus. It may well be that the Greeks wanted to annex the important port of Troy, which stood at the entrance to the Danelles, and so occupied a location that had a great strategic point. Tunaambiwa Agamemnon after that alikuja akakuwa warlord mkubwa sana na aggressive sana. Hata tunaambiwa aliorganize expedition yenye ilienda kurevenge abduction ya wife ya brother yake mwenye alikuwa anaitwa Helen from prince wa Troy mmoja mwenye alikuwa anajiita Paris. Paris kuna time amekuja kustay kwa palace ya Menelaus. Na alikuja sababu walikuwa na dialogue fulani. Kuna venye Menelaus alikuwa anataka area fulani around Troy, na ilikuwa very important kwa hiyo kingdom yao. So alikuwa na like kusugarcoat Paris aenda bunge na buda yake, kitu kama hiyo. Na Paris naye kumbe alikuwa na intention nyingine ya kuabduct ni Helen, wife ya Menelaus. So tunaambiwa Agamemnon aliorganize expedition na wakaenda huko ku revenge. Let's continue reading tujue kuliendaje. The Greeks had been interfering along with the west coast of Anatolia for 100 years. This coastline was so far from Atusa, the Hittite capital, that the Hittite Greek king was unable to oppose the Greek raids. The Greeks succeeded in capturing several coastal towns, notably Miletus, and they also established bases on Aegean islands close to Troy. In fact, just before the Trojan War, it seems that the Hittites regained control over Miletus, so Agamemnon would have had an additional reason for trying to capture a major trading base in the north to replace it. Tunaambiwa hapa hivi Wagiriki hapo nyuma, like miaka mingi hapo nyuma, walikuwa wanatampa sana na boda ya Anatolia. Nikisema Wagiriki inamaanisha wapande ya kina Agamemnon. Walikuwa wanataka kabla wachukue hiyo from the Hittites, walikuwa wanasumbuana nayo sana, na hiyo area ilikuwa karibu na Atusa. Na Atusa ilikuwa capital city ya Hittite capital. So tunaambiwa the Greeks walikuwa wanataka sana hiyo area, which they succeeded in taking it, the Anatolian area border, sababu ilikuwa very strategic point for them to fight ama kuconquer Troy. Sawa? So tunaambiwa through that Agamemnon aliweza kuconquer town mingi after that. Na sababu alikuwa anataka kunini Troy, ilifika mahali akarudishia town moja yenye ilikuwa inajiita Miletus to the Hittites, ndio apate support na aweze pia kupass through na kufight the Trojan War na kuwin in a strategic way. Tuliread tuone. Agamemnon organized a colossal fleet contributed by kingdom all over Greece, a total of 1,200 ships and well over 100,000 warriors. Many scholars have doubted that the fleet and army could have been that big, but accounts of the Battle of Kadesh, which happened a few decades earlier, show that battles were certainly fought on a grand scale. Tunaambiwa after Agamemnon kukonka town zingine na kurudishia kingdom zingine, town zingine, ndio apate support, aliorganize expedition ya war yenye tunaambiwa ilikuwa na ships kama 1,200 na over 100,000 warriors. Although watu wengine walikuwa nakata hiyo yuko ukweli, but tunaambiwa hapo before the Cadetian War, ile ilikuwa between Muatalis na Ramesses II, ilionyesha kuwa hiyo time vita ilikuwa inapigwa in a big scale. Yani vita ilikuwa inapigwa, vita ilikuwa kitu kubwa, haikuwa kitu ndogo. Yani kulikuwa na warrior wengi na masoja wengi kwa nini, kwa battlefield. Haikuwa kitu ya watu 2, 3 ama 4. Ilikuwa inafightiwa in a very large scale. So hiyo ilikuwa imetuonyesha the Trojan War, the Cadetian War, that vita ilikuwa inapigwa in a large scale. So watu walikuwa na dispute Agamemnon, wali have to refer back wali have to refer back to the Cadetian War kuona ni kweli vita ilikuwa inapiganwa na watu wengi. Ile ya Agamemnon ilikuwa ni kama sinema. People are not believing in this lie, but it was a reality. Let's continue reading it. After the fall of Troy, the spoils were shared out. Agamemnon was given Cassandra, the daughter of King Priam, as his share. Okay. When Agamemnon eventually returned home after a difficult storm-ridden voyage, he was spotted approaching the port of Napoleon from a watchtower, and the news was signaled by way of Argos to Messenia. Tunaambiwa after Agamemnon kuconquer Troy, walishare spoils, yani mali walipata huko, between wale king waliproduce masoja wao pia kwenda kufight huko hivyo. Na tunaambiwa Agamemnon aligiftiwa daughter moja wa king wa huko hivyo mwenye alikuwa anaitwa Cassandra wa king wa Prime, alipata huyo kama zawadi. So akawa anarudi Messenia. Let's continue reading. While Agamemnon had been away fighting, his place was usurped by Aegisthus, the son of Thyestes, who had become the lover of Agamemnon's queen, Clytemnestra. Agamemnon knew nothing of this, rode inland to Messenia, where he was welcomed. While he was dressing after bathing, Clytemnestra and her lover Aegisthus murdered him. Aegisthus wanted his throne. Clytemnestra wanted a revenge for the death of her daughter. Agamemnon had sacrificed Iphigenia at Ilias in Boeotia in order to placate the goddess Artemis, when he had offended and who was controlling the winds to prevent the Greek fleet from sailing to Troy. Clytemnestra blamed Agamemnon for her daughter's death, but the sacrifice took place at the insistence of the priest Calchas. After Agamemnon's assassination, there was bloodbath in which Cassandra perished along with many Agamemnon's supporters. Hapa tunaambiwa wakati Agamemnon alikuwa Troy, at the Trojan War, kuna jamaa huku nyuma alikuwa ananyemelea wife yake na akampata. Sawa? Na jamaa mwenyewe tunaambiwa alikuwa anaitwa Aegisthus, son wa Thyestes. Alilemelea wife ya nani? Ya Agamemnon mwenye alikuwa anaitwa Clytemnestra. Na wakakuwa lovers. So by the time Agamemnon alikuwa narudi, hao watu wawili walikuwa lovers. So it is automatically Agamemnon atakuwa an enemy. So without knowing, because hakuna mtu alimwambia kitu kama hiyo, hakuwa anajua. So these people wali organize and they killed Agamemnon. And after that wakaua watu wote walikuwa associated na Agamemnon, including Cassandra mwenye alikuwa gift ya Agamemnon kutoka Troy. Let's continue reading and get to know more. One thing I was forgetting is that wife yake alikoliud na huyu jamaa anaitwa Aegisthus kuwa Agamemnon, sababu aliclaim Agamemnon alicause death ya daughter wake. Na tunaambiwa hapo nyuma Agamemnon aliitishwa daughter wake as a sacrifice sababu alikuwa ameoffend their gods by then. Unajua kila culture iko na the way of living and beliefs. So Agamemnon alitoa daughter wake kama sacrifice. So wife yake alikuwa na hiyo beef for that long. So when this time came, alipata chance mzuri ya kumuua Agamemnon. So that's what piloted her and motivated her to kill Agamemnon so that she can remain with her lover na continue life na kuchukua pia throne ya Agamemnon. Let's continue reading. It is likely that Agamemnon was buried in the beehive tomb immediately outside the Lion's Gate of Messenia. The tomb, ironically known by the name Tomb of Clytemnestra, it was the last in the series of royal tombs at Messenia, built at about the right time, 1250 to 1020 BC, and it was conspicuous for its position by the entrance to the citadel and its coating of white plaster. The murder of Agamemnon was eventually avenged by his son Orestes, who returned to Messenia in about 1212 BC, killed both Agisthotho's and his mother, and succeeded to his father's throne. Tunaambiwa after Agamemnon kuuliwa, alizikwa kwa gate ya kuingia kwa kuingia Messenian Kingdom, na nini yake ilikuwa very visible ukikama nini yake kaburi yake, sasa sababu ilikuwa imetengenezwa such design, ilikuwa imepakwa pia white, ukitoka mbali unaiona. But tunaambia later years son wake alirudi Messenia na akarevenge death yake, akaua mother yake na akamuua na huyo lava wake na akasit kwa throne. Let's continue reading tuone kuliendelea aje. The extraordinary life and death of King Agamemnon were given immortality by successive generations of poets and dramatists. The poems of epic cycle contained a summary of events. This was elaborated into a cycle of tragedies by Aeschylus called the Orestia. The first play in this cycle, called the Agamemnon, opens with the news arriving by the lighting of a beacon on the mountaintop at Argos. By the time Aeschylus wrote his play, Argos had become a far more important place than Messenia, so the play had to have Argos as its setting. The kind of spin has made it very difficult to disentangle the historical reality from the later embellishments. Life ya Agamemnon ilitouch watu sana, sababu tunaambiwa hapa kuna writer fulani mwenye alikuwa anaitwa Aeschylus aliandika play about Agamemnon, but ilikuwa na some challenges sababu ya venye town zilipositioniwa na zikachenjiwa later years. Let's continue reading to get to know. But it is at least clear that Agamemnon's career had been a major inspiration to artists, writers, and composers across many centuries, from Homer, Aeschylus, and Euripides to Berlioz and Richard Strauss. Agamemnon succeeded in uniting, for a time, perhaps as many as 20 separate Bronze Age kingdoms in Greece, in a common cause, the destruction of Troy. Maybe, as with many later wars, the cause was not much more than a pretext. The war itself was the main thing, a kind of bonding exercise that gave Greece an embryonic nationhood. Even Homer tells us that the heroes gloried in the killing, and no greater title could awarded to a king than a sacker of cities. Tunaambiwa Agamemnon for the first time aliweza unite like different kingdoms za Greek, like 20 kingdoms za Greek under one emblem ama under one emperor, and that was to fight the Trojan War, na waka succeed, unaona. So that is how Agamemnon life was so impactful in the ancient world, and that is why his story was written and acted in different stages. He was so impactful na alichange vitu mob. Thank you so much for being with me from the beginning of video. I know this video has taken long today because the Agamemnon story was a bit longer than the others that we had read before. But thank you so much for listening to it. I think and hope that it will touch or impact you in a positive way and make you see how the world is. Continue subscribing and following at The Modern African Man. Until the next video, bye bye.